Today, as we dive in too deep with myself and Neal Driscoll, we got a lot to talk about. Like, when should the Miami Dolphins start moving off assets? Should it really start if they lose in week 4? And who are the assets that should be at the top of the trade target list? Plus, we're going to talk about what other coaches are doing that Mike McDaniel won't do, and so much more. Do me the favor, smash the like button. Subscribe if you are new, and as always, let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jaelan has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, man open. Touchdown! The run from Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown again!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan.
Let's go!
All right, huddle up, huddle up. We're going to crank these engines up on one.
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw. Blitz coming. They get to him. No, he takes off running. And he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jaylen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another one. Shout out to all of you for coming through on this episode. As always, I am joined by my co-host for Fin Too Deep, Neal Driscoll, and we have quite a bit to talk about. We were talking before we went live, I'll give you the floor here, Neal, in a sec. I mean, for as bad as even, the biggest critics of the Miami Dolphins thought they would be, no one thought they would start off 0-3, potentially staring down the barrel at an 0-4 on Monday night in their new brand spanking new rivalry uniforms. But here we are, Neal, another week, another loss, and it seems like over the last 2 weeks they just keep getting tougher and tougher. We had the Patriots snap their losing streak to Tua Tagovailoa. Tua Tagovailoa's undefeated streak against New England is officially over. And that was a game where Tua was in a chance late in the game to put us in a position to win. He came up short. And then this past week, Neal, Tua settles in. Tua looks solid. But again, after a boneheaded play by Zach Sealer, puts us in a position where we need Tua to drive us down the field and tie the game. He throws yet another back-breaking pick for the second week in a row. Dolphins defense then allows the Patriots on their ensuing drive to convert a 2nd and 16. And that's all she wrote. And the Dolphins are now 0-3. How you feeling, brother? It's tough to be a Dolphin fan right now, that's for sure.
Yeah, man, I think you nailed it. Like, I had the Dolphins finishing like 8-9 this season. I thought they'd start hot and fade like we've seen. But it's tough, man, when you're 0-3, headed into a primetime game against the division rivals. And I was a big Adam Sandler fan growing up, like, Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore. And
yeah,
I had to get through the pain of watching Little Nicky, right? That's what it feels like to be a Dolphins fan right now. Like, I still love him.
I think Little Nicky's a little slept on. I thought that had its moments, that movie, bro. I get what you're saying, though.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's like, damn, like, here you go. Like, it just, I don't know, man. Like, the expectations are just down, and I feel like we're just waiting for this to end. And this regime, this quarterback, and there's just a lot of frustration. Like, I know there's a lot of finger pointing in the fan base. it's a tough situation when you have a quarterback that looked, like he was ascending as a top 10 quarterback in this league, and now we are where we are. It's a tough situation. And, a lot of people want to go back and tell people they're wrong. If that makes you feel better, go ahead. At the end of the day, I think we all want the same thing, right? This team to be a team that could go win football games in a week out basis, right? The Buffalo game sucked. We lost, but the effort was okay. It was a good game. It's just so Dolphins that one of your best players who you just rewarded with a nice contract runs into the kicker after your defense holds them. And I knew right at that moment that we were losing that game. I thought if we got the ball in our hands that we had a chance. But once he ran into the kicker, I was like, oh, Allen's at the 30. He's scoring. So
yeah, he's scoring. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's tough. I still get excited to watch the Dolphins. I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm not going to, I don't care how bad it gets.
You're a masochist?
I went through the 1-15. I watched Cleo Lemon. I'm not going to give up on this franchise.
Yeah.
But, I'm not going to spin it as a positive. It's going to be a brutal 14, whatever weeks we have left. It's going to be brutal. It's not going to be fun. But, I think, as Dolphin fans is you can't wish a whole year of your life away. So you got to buckle up on Sundays and Mondays and get through it just like the rest of us,
It's funny you bring up, that 1-15. I've mentioned this a couple times. Nothing's going to shake me from the Dolphin tree because I remember, during that period, during that season, I was working continental shifts. So every second weekend, I was working on Sunday from 7 to 7. And even through that crappy of a season, I was DVRing every game I would miss. I would stay away from the results. I wouldn't turn on the radio in my working section and work because I didn't want to hear spoilers. And that was through a 1-15 season. I'm out here TiVoing games. So it's, an 0-3 start ain't nothing to me. Ain't nothing to me, brother.
At all.
25 years of pain. It's like talking to you before we went live here about the Blue Jays, man. The Blue Jays, all of a sudden they've lost their swagger and they got to go 4-0 to clinch the AL East over the next four games. They got to win out. They control their own destiny. If they win out, they clinch it. But if they go 3-1 and the Yankees go 4-0, the Yankees take the division, right? So we've got our, we are tied with them, but we got the tiebreaker right now. And I literally tweeted out today, man, I'm a Dolphin fan. I'm used to the pain of watching a team collapse when they control their own destiny. So, and we saw it in 2023. It's just been such a ride as a Dolphin fan since Marino retired. And even in Marino's final years in the 90s, it was kind of a ride too, that nothing can hurt me at this point, brother.
100%. My mom even said, my mom was like the other day, are you still going to do your podcast all year? I'm like, you know what? Honestly, it's better to talk about the disaster than a team that's going to be 8-8. I'm excited.
And at least we get to dream about the draft.
Rebuild, coaches, GMs. It sucks that we're thinking of week 3, but it's one of those things that this playoff win drought that's hanging over our head that's 24 years. Just think about where you were the last time they won. I was a senior in high school. It was crazy to think that it's been that long.
Talk about the last time they won a playoff game?
Right. God, man, it's crazy. This organization, the Miami Dolphins, man, at a point were a pinnacle of the NFL franchise. To go 20, it is hard to go 24 years without winning a playoff game.
That's impressive.
It is.
This is why I love you're a hockey fan, so we can talk about this. Everyone wants to say we're the Dallas Cowboys of the AFC East. I got a better one for you, all you hockey fans. At this point, are we not the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Maple Leafs. I knew
of the NFL. They never won since '67. We haven't won since '73. They can't win crap in the playoffs. We can't win crap in the playoffs.
Right.
No,
100%. And to be honest, it's I hate to say it, but this is kind of the season. If we weren't going to be a contender this year, it's almost the kind of the season we needed to have, I think, to shake things up. There's nothing worse than mediocrity, but I think mediocrity would have been if this team was 8-9, I think that you could have a world where Greer and McDaniel are both back. Hell, I still don't know if they're still going to not be back. You know what I mean? it's weird. It's a weird dynamic here, but I think we all know that this team's not going to go anywhere this season, and it's going to lead to a lot of interesting conversations.
December 30th, 2000 was the last time we won. That's the exact date when we beat the Indianapolis Colts, and it took overtime.
Lamar Smith game walk-off run.
And I was in grade 10. No, I was in grade 9.
Crazy.
Yeah. Let me think. Yeah, I think I was in grade 9, or I would have turned 16 in that February. So I was in grade 10.
Man. That's why I'll say this. If you see a Dolphins hat or a Dolphins jersey, and that person's a little bit older, you know one thing. They're a loyal person.
Yeah, that's it, man. That's it. I'm loyal. I'm loyal to my relationships. I'm loyal to my friendships. And I'm loyal to my teams. As a Penguins fan, people don't remember. I went through. Do you remember after we traded Yager? Our best player at one point was Rico Fata. I don't even know if people remember who Rico Fata is. Okay, I've been through remember when Mario and Burkle took over the Penguins. Remember they couldn't fill seats and we were going to leave Pittsburgh. Remember the Penguins were almost out of Pittsburgh. I've been there with my franchises and back, but man, it's just there's no. At least my franchise got Sidney Crosby and then Evgeny Malkin and turned it around. This franchise, you talked about it before we were going live, man. Look at all the teases we got. The back-to-back 1,800-yard seasons. The innovative offense under McDaniel. Tua leading the league in passing. You look at the 2022 and 2023 seasons, everyone and their grandmother believed we were on the right path. That's why in 2024, even the national media was expecting us to take that next leap. We didn't. And if you actually think about it, 2023, remember, everyone thought the Chargers would take that next leap. And remember, we beat them on opening day, and they didn't, right? And now they had to make a coaching change to Harbaugh, and now everyone's a believer again 2 years later. Well, we're only 1 year away from when the whole media was believing in us, so maybe that turns around. Listen, I wanted to talk to you about something, because if people don't know this, they will by now, at least in this segment of the show. You're pretty plugged in over there to the Baltimore Ravens. And one thing I've been, you've heard me talk about it. You've heard me theorize it. You've heard me pitch it. Listen, if you're not going to get a quarterback in this draft, I want Moe Goa or I want Fano at right tackle. But let's throw that all out. If you got to get this organization and this infrastructure right, Neal, the Baltimore Ravens have a tough schedule. They're struggling right now. They have a great roster. You've talked to me privately. This is why I've been talking about the whole Harbaugh thing. You've talked to me privately about how since Ozzie Newsome left, there's been a lot of tension in that front office between Harbaugh and the front office. And Ozzie Newsome basically being an advisor there has basically been the glue that's kept that relationship together. Is there any chance if they miss the playoffs that A, they either fire Harbaugh, or B, they would be open to my idea of listening to a trade offer for Harbaugh? Because that's where I'm at, bro. If this season continues to go off the rails, yeah, you want to blow this up? That's fantastic. Go get a proven guy. Go get a guy who's won with a statue back there in Flacco. And let's be honest, probably squeeze all the juice you're going to get out of Lamar Jackson right now. So he's won with a dual threat and he's won with a pocket passer. And it might just be time for for a new environment and a new change of scenery. Can you talk about that relationship between Baltimore Ravens and Harbaugh, and if there is a opportunity if this team doesn't do well?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that it's very well known that if Lamar Jackson didn't have the ascension that he had, that Harbaugh was in a bad position in Baltimore. Flacco had obviously won the Super Bowl, but he had, under a big contract, not lived up to the hype. The Ravens weren't the face of the AFC that they've been. Then, Lamar Jackson comes on the scene and totally transforms their organization, right? And Harbaugh was able to be on that ride. And I think now that you're at a point where if you polled Baltimore fans, it's a coin flip whether they want to keep Harbaugh out. A lot of people blame him for this team taking that next step. I don't necessarily agree. I think the players make plays, and for some reason in big games, Lamar Jackson turns the ball over. We've seen Derrick Henry turning the ball over. Harbaugh, he can't fix that. So a guy like Lamar, who barely throws interceptions in the regular season, comes to the playoffs, and I don't know if it's the pressure, what happens. They always feel like they are pressing in those games, where if I'm the coach of the Baltimore Ravens, I'm probably running the ball 4 downs and saying, try to have fun stopping Lamar and Henry, But I think that you're on the right path here, and I don't think it's just Baltimore. I've said this all off season, that there's friction between Tomlin and the Steelers, and I think another coach that's the less likely of the three would be a guy like Sean McDermott in Buffalo, where I think we all know what one of the things that have held this franchise back. It's first-time coaches. The only coach we've hired since Jimmy Johnson that was a coach at any level was Nick Saban, right? Nick Saban was a Michigan State LSU coach. But when you go down the list of everybody since then, Wannstedt, right? Gase, McDaniel, Flores, Philbin, Cam Cameron, the list goes on and on. None of them were head coaches at the collegiate level or the professional level when they got the job in Miami. So I think, you and I were texting the other day. One name that I heard that is very linked to Miami if they do make a change is Jesse Minter, who's the defensive coordinator to the Chargers. And I think one GM he'd be tied to is the VP of player personnel from Baltimore, George Kokinis, because Minter, if people don't know this, when he left when he was originally on the Baltimore coaching staff. So that's where he has ties to that Ravens front office. So, and I like Jesse Minter, but you need a proven guy, and not just to handle the team, but to fix what's broken behind the scenes in that front office. And that's why, any of those guys, Harbaugh, Tomlin, McDermott, if any of them shake free, I think it's a no-brainer that the Dolphins go after them.
Just throw the money at them, right? Just back up the Brinks truck.
Well, and a lot of people will give me shit because I had my number one candidate as Mike McCarthy. And I'm not out here acting like Mike McCarthy is Don Shula.
I don't want Mike McCarthy at all, brother. Jeez.
But what I'll say, though, is he's a top 10 winning percentage coach of all time. He's won a Super Bowl. He won despite of Jerry Jones. He at least could bring some stability to this organization. I would take anybody who's got at least one check of a head coaching box on their resume over any of these first-time treads. Because, let's just say you go to Jesse Minter, right? We just have Brian Flores, right? You can't – it's not going to – you got to get experience. You got to get someone who's been there. The proof is in the pudding. These first-time coaches, it's a crapshoot, and they fail more than they succeed. And that's where it's but a lot of those guys that we know Reason that are the proven commodities, I'm not trying to be mean, but Father Time, a lot of them have passed on, retired. There's not
Would
many
you
of
be
those guys
interested
left.
in if bygones could be guygons? Would you be interested in Saban again?
Not at that age, dude. I'll be honest. You could convince me on Bill Belichick, not because I think he'd be a great head coach for this team and they'd start winning, but I'm 100% confident that if he got the job, he would fix the broken front office. And I think that's almost as important as finding the head coach, because I think we all know from all the stories we've heard about certain contracts, people going in offices and banging the table, it's dysfunctional there, right? It's not a clear chain of command, and that's what you need. And I don't know if it's first-time coaches or if it's the way the Dolphins are structured or a combination of both, but man, I'd have a hard time giving a top 10 pick for any coach, just because, like you said, even if you don't get a quarterback, you got to go build something special, right? You've got to go get a guy that solidifies your line, something like that. You got to get a slam dunk type of player. But man, I don't know. Part of me says if you can do whatever you can do, because here's what you know about a guy like Harbaugh, that coaching tree that he can bring. People from the front office that he can bring. Look at the Chargers. They stole Ravens personnel guys and got Jim Harbaugh, and I think that's totally transformed them. They look like such a
transformed Herbert too.
Right. They look like a disciplined team. They look like a physical team, and they look like they're not afraid of the big moments anymore. Right. So it's I think we need some of that here. It's going to be big. And like, I don't think there's a rush to get rid of a Mike McDaniel right now. Who cares, right? Like at this point, I do think it's one of those things that as the season progresses and they get past the bye week and you want to get ahead of the curve and you want to jump on the coaching hiring process. I want them to be first in line. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want the Giants to get rid of Daboll first and then the Dolphins are, playing catch up. Like, I want them to be leading the charge to go out there and find the next head coach. Well, the only problem is I don't know if they have self-awareness yet to know that's on their horizon.
Let me ask you this, okay? You want them to be first in line, and I totally agree with that sentiment. But do you almost need to move on from Mike McDaniel to figure out what you have in Anthony Weaver so you're not trapped into that with other potential candidates out there? So basically what I'm saying is all these candidates that we're sitting here naming, if you want to be open for business and first in line to any of them, is it more beneficial to move off Mike McDaniel and at least see what you have at Anthony Weaver first, so at least you can X him off the list if he doesn't work out and you don't get trapped in the, we got the guy in the building noise?
I'll say this, and I'm a big Anthony Weaver fan, but man, he has disappointed me this year.
That defense is disappointed.
I think it's the scheme and the defensive play calling as much as I think it's the personnel. So I'll be honest, I'm even at a point where I don't really need to see Anthony Weaver on the sidelines. Like, that's not the hire I want. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not the hire I want. Like you can ride, if you want to feel committed to McDaniel, let him ride this out and finish this all. I wouldn't hate that. Because I'll say this, man, about Mike McDaniel. Because I was one of the first to turn on him. Right? Like, no doubt. I think the one thing that hurt him was that he believed in Tua Tagovailoa more than any of us. And he hitched himself to that wagon, right? Like, there's a crossroads when that Tua contract was up. I wanted the contract. You wanted the contract. We all wanted it, right? Like, it's okay to be, at the end of the day, though, that was a crossroads where if he would have been a heel and said, hey, you asked me to put Humpty Dumpty together, I did it. Now let me go get my own guy. We might be having a different conversation about Mike McDaniel right now, even though I think there's other things like his lack of challenges or his use of challenges, his play calling, getting the clock in, putting your offense on their heels, a lot of those procedural penalties. I think you could throw at Mike McDaniel's feet, right? Like, but with that said, I will say, and I know you watch it, when I watch the All-22, damn, Waddle and Tyreek are open a lot.
Yeah.
They're open a lot. And if you had a quarterback that could extend the plays and make those throws, when the pocket breaks down, I don't know if we're having the same conversation. I really don't know. I can't say definitively that McDaniel is the answer, but I would have liked to see him without like a Skylar Thompson, Tyler Huntley type of quarterback, right? Like, I would have liked to see him with a really good contender for someone who could compete with Tua Tagovailoa. Even like a Kirk Cousins, I would have liked to see what he could have done with that guy who's got NFL starts under his. But I also do think there's a point where the damage is done, and it'd be really hard to sell any of us on Mike McDaniel heading this team next year.
Yeah, I agree.
And he's going to go and be one of the best offensive coordinators in football. That's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Have you seen what Robert Saleh looks like right now in San Francisco as the D coordinator? Like,
Easton.
Yeah,
and his game plan against Buffalo was amazing. It really, really was.
It was, yeah.
It was the first time I saw the counter to Sean McDermott, and he had McDermott on his heels. And like you said, Tua was brilliant for 60% of that game. But when we needed it most, that's when he kind of turned into a pumpkin.
The wheels fell off. Yeah, exactly. All right, before we keep going, before we keep getting into everything, I want to shout out the sponsor of today's video, and that sponsor is Sleeper. You think you know football? Then try to turn your football knowledge into real money with the Sleeper app, the ultimate fantasy sports app that can turn game day into payday. Just download the Sleeper app and pick more or less on your favorite players. With more stats than any other daily fantasy app, just choose 2 or more of your favorite players from pregame or live. Pick more or less from the predicted stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money if your picks win. Use promo code PHINSIDE, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. And remember, it's currently operational in over 25 states and and almost every Canadian province. So check out Sleeper today and go get your deposit match. All right, now back to Dolphins land here. Let's talk about this. Should the Miami Dolphins if they lose this week in week 4, should they start trading off assets? Should they start moving off of assets that they have on this team? And the reason why I ask this question is because of something we saw yesterday, and it was the fact that Miami, Fowler, first of all, Jeremy Fowler, he said, should the Miami Dolphins talk to the Kansas City Chiefs about Jalen Wright? And Graziano said that another potentially available Dolphin that he has his eye on is edge rusher Jaelan Phillips, who's in the final year of his contract. If Miami decides to move off players, Phillips is probably one of their more popular potential trade options. And Jalen Wright going to a team like the Kansas City Chiefs right now, where clearly Ollie Gordon and Achane are the movement right now. What's your thought on this process? If they come out Monday night, they're 0-4, the trade deadline is November 4th, should they start fielding calls and should they start taking calls on players like Tyreek, Jalen, and should it start turning into loading up future draft picks for what's coming in 2026 and 2027?
Internally, they should know that by the trade deadline, if they're not where they are, right? Like, and to me, it's not about can we make a run for the playoffs. It's is it worth keeping this band together? Like, can we really make it run? And the only thing that scares me there a little bit is that, it's Chris Greer. It's the same collective that makes all of our decisions. So, there's an obvious lack of awareness. But reason I think where they are as a franchise is I'm great with waiting to the trade deadline, because I think when you see the trade deadline, competitor bids get in there and the price goes up because teams are against the clock to make that move. But if I'm the Dolphins, it's Jalen Wright, it's Jaelan Phillips, it's Bradley Chubb, it's Tyreek Hill, it's Minkah Fitzpatrick. It's all the people that might not be here in 2 years when you do this, right? And, when you look at a guy like Jaelan Phillips, it makes a lot of sense why teams would be interested, right? We know that pass rushes are the big difference in a lot of these big playoff games. And the contenders, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Eagles now with Nolan Smith being hurt for a while, right? Like, a lot of these teams need better pass rush. And Phillips is a guy that he's disappointed me a little bit this season, to be honest. But as long as you can get more than a third, because I think if you let him sign as a free agent in the compensatory formula, you're going to get a third-round pick based off what that contract looks like. I think the Dolphins would be naive not to make the move. And that's why I like Phillips. He's 26. But I think they know, just like they know with Wilkins, just like they do with Holland, that they're not going to get into the neighborhood of the contract that he wants, right? Because they do have this albatross of this Tua contract to figure out. They do have a bad contract with Austin Jackson that they got to find a way to get out of in the next couple of years, right? So I think they're resetting officially, and I think Phillips, look how these picks can work. And there's a lot of football left, but the Houston Texans do not look good. And that pick right now that we got from Houston is, I think, the 5th pick in the 3rd round. So I root against the Houston Texans every week now. That's added to my resume. But, I don't know if you agree with me, but if you could get me a third for a Tyreek, a third for Phillips, a third for a Minkah Fitzpatrick, a 5th for a guy like Bradley Chubb, load me up with draft
someone
capital.
hires Anthony Weaver and gives you some picks.
Right. Let someone hire Anthony Weaver, you get another third compensatory pick. Go ahead and let all that happen, right? Because here's the thing, and you nailed this. You don't have to take the franchise quarterback this year if the guy you like's not there, because There's going to be a great 2027 class, right? Like, it's just going to keep happening. It's always good. Like, wait, don't force your hand and take a quarterback out of desperation. If you have a conviction for that guy, then make a move and go get him. But we need to reshape a lot of this roster, right? We're going to come after this, and we're going to need, offensive line. We're going to need defensive line. We're going to need pass rushers. We need cornerback help. We need safety. We probably need another linebacker. Go load up in those middle rounds and do what we did last year. Because I don't care what the numbers say. Like, I believe in this draft class in the long run. And I think a lot of things are going wrong in Miami. So for those who are like, oh, we could have had Tyler Warren and you wanted Kenny Grant, I still want Kenny Grant over Tyler Warren. And I'm good with saying that. You know what I mean? But, yeah, they should be aware. And I'd play the game of accumulating draft picks. The only problem is the guy making a lot of those decisions is probably starting to feel the pressure of being on the hot seat, Chris Greer. And, I don't know if trading away all those assets is a good look for a guy that might be a dead man walking, but I think it's necessary.
Yeah, and I mean, you said something that makes a lot of sense too, and I've talked about it. Waiting closer to the deadline and letting the deals get more competitive between teams that are in a position. You know what I mean? Like, the Kansas City Chiefs could be competing with other teams for a Tyreek Hill at the deadline. You know what I mean? Robert Thomason brought up a great point. You look at Bosa going down in San Fran. They need an edge rusher. Could San Francisco start making competitive offers for maybe even a guy like Chubb because of the restructure of his contract? I don't know, but I do think if you lose on Monday night, this season's a wrap. It already feels like it's a wrap. I get it, but I think that would probably
nail in the coffin.
That would be the exclamation point on it. You know what I mean? So another thing, with Phillips, we're not going to pay him. I mean, he's got the injury history, and then now he's staying healthy this year. And what's he really doing? His pressure rate's good, but is he finishing plays? No, there's only one guy finishing plays off the edge right now, and that's Bradley Chubb, right? So, I don't, and to your whole draft thing, you could say that for any draft. Like, you look at this team and what's going on, even if they would have drafted Burrow would have got killed behind this offensive line. The guy's hurt more than Tua. If they would have drafted Herbert, he would have never got the Pep Hamilton coaching in year one. From a quarterback whisperer, he would have got ruined by the revolving door and everything that's going on right now. Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts doesn't have to throw 20 touchdowns in a season, and yet they can win the Super Bowl and win their division. You think he could get away with that in Miami? Hell to the no. All right? Jordan Love. You think he would have got 2 years of sitting on the bench behind a player the caliber of Aaron Rodgers and under the coaching caliber of a LaFleur, who you could say, like O'Connell's probably a little bit of a quarterback whisperer right now? No, he wouldn't have got that. So, I don't think you would have had to change dozens of draft picks to change the outcome, and not one singular draft pick being changed by itself would have changed this outcome. I'll go even further. If you would have drafted Justin Jefferson instead of Austin Jackson, this wouldn't have changed this team. Yeah, we'd still have issues. You know what I mean?
The problem is us. The problem's not them. The problem is us, right? I think that's a lot of the case here. And you mentioned
that's why they go and find success in other places after they 100%. Leave.
Almost anyone who leaves this organization goes and achieves success. But you mentioned Pep Hamilton, and it's funny because, man, it's so far away. But with Malik Washington in Maryland being coached by Pep Hamilton and Bryce Underwood in Michigan in 2028, that is a draft class where I think there's going to be some special.
And Sanga Patele out of Cal.
Yeah, you're a guy out of Cal. That is, to me, going to be a special draft class, but I don't think the Dolphins can wait 3 more drafts to get a quarterback, right?
See, but that's what I would be doing, right? If I say, okay, this 2 ain't it, if I internally come to that conclusion and I say we got to start rebuilding this, year one, like I told you, I'd be going after Fano or Moigoa, and I would be trying to build the trenches out. And I wouldn't, I've said this on record. In 2027, I'd be all in on trying to get Jeremiah Smith. I'd be moving heaven and earth to try and get Jeremiah Smith, okay? And 100%. Then 2028 is when I'd actually be looking for my quarterback. 2026 would be about filling out the trenches, filling out, the secondary and the linebacker room like you talked about, and filling out the trenches. 2027 would be going after Jeremiah Smith and then filling out whatever I couldn't get filled out in 2026. And I would be having a journeyman quarterback in the meantime during this process. And then in 2028, I would be like, okay, let's move heaven and earth and let's go get our quarterback this year. That's what I would be, because you got to learn from your mistakes. If you're going to move off of Tua, I mean, I said this, I joined this community in October 2019 on YouTube. And I remember saying that one of the first things that came out of my mouth on the Tuesday night panel was, I don't care if you draft Burrow. I don't care if you draft Herbert. I don't care if you draft Tua. I don't care if you draft Love. I don't care who you draft. Build me an offensive line like what they have in Oakland and Indianapolis. Because remember in 2019, Oakland and Indianapolis next to New England were probably the two best offensive lines, along with like Dallas, at the time, right? Oakland, remember before all those guys aged out, like Hudson, Ronnie, remember how good that freaking offensive line in Oakland was before they all aged out? In Indianapolis, in Luck's last years, they built it too late. But I was saying this back then, build me that. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I said you got to come out with, you want to get a quarterback, cool, but you got to go get, these are the three players I wanted in the first round of that draft. I was dead set on them. I wanted Tua or Burrow, I wanted Tristan Wirfs, and I wanted Jonathan Taylor. And Tristan Wirfs next to Penei Sewell is probably the best right tackle in football. He can play left tackle for you too.
And he's on that level. He's on Sewell's level.
Yeah, and Jonathan Taylor is what? Number 2 in rushing yards since 2020, I believe.
He looks good this year, that's for sure. Remember when we wanted him and everyone told us we were idiots?
You remember they wanted Jalen Waddle. Remember they wanted remember a couple of the players they wanted were like, you remember a couple of the players they wanted for him were like almost untouchable players we had. And I imagine if you would have came away with Tua, Tristan Wirfs, and Jonathan Taylor. Even if Tua didn't work out, you'd say, well, we got a running game and and you got Patrick Paul and you got 2 bookend tackles. I mean, think about this. Think about this, brother. Even if you would have kept Jackson, let's say the Austin Jackson pick goes down. You draft Robert Hunt then too, okay? That 2021 draft, trading up for Liam Eichenberg and not staying pat for Creed Humphrey and then turning around and taking Quinn Myers instead of Hunter Long, when they were courting him to the point that Quinn Myers was looking for property in Miami.
Right.
Man, that 2-year period between 2020, you made the wrong pick in Austin Jackson, but 2021 came around and gave you a chance to rectify that by getting your interior right, and they still botched it.
Yeah, I think Tua's still the right pick there. I still do, and it didn't pan out the way we wanted, but I still think that was the right pick. I do. But I think the Jackson pick was bad. The Igbenogany pick was
terrible.
It's a fireable expense. Hunt was a good pick, but Raekwon Davis was a bad pick. And a lot of people don't give Brian Flores enough shit for pounding the table for him. But that was a bad pick, man.
We thought he'd be good in the first year and a half, and then he just kind of fizzled out.
Right. So, that was a big miss. And then, Jaelan Phillips has been a really good football player for us. But it seems like he's almost the story of what if. More than of what has happened. And, Liam Eichenberg over Creed Humphrey, I mean, that's another fireable offense. Hunter Long over Quinn Myers is another fireable. These are
Well, think about your first 5 picks in that 2021 draft. Waddle, extended. Jaelan Phillips, me and you both agree he ain't going to get extended. He's probably out of here. Javon Holland gets paid somewhere else because he left his knees in MetLife a couple years ago. Eichenberg, bust, and they're just clinging on to it because they won't admit their failure. Hunter Long, gone. Those first 5 picks, and remember, you had as much capital, and look at the position where those first 5 picks were compared to 2020.
Yeah, and I think the Austin Jackson contract only got done because they just kept banging their head on the wall. You know what I mean? He played good before that contract for a few weeks, but it's not just injuries with him, man. He's regressed since he got paid too. You think about it and talk through it, and I'm a Chris Greer advocate, but damn, man, we need a new GM. We need new. Yeah. That's bad. When you walk through that 2 drafts, pick by pick like that, and I'm hearing that's as big of a botch as you can get.
Yeah, we haven't even got into what Cam Smith has turned into. Bahamas says, Reason, do you like Mendoza? I think Mendoza and Dante Moore are your two favorites for the Heisman right now with Mateer taking injury. I've said this. My top 5 guys in this draft at quarterback right now are Sellers, Nussmeier, Mateer, Mendoza, and Dante Moore. If you want some intriguing options from me, Taylon Green from Arkansas, Jalen Daniels, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on Sawyer Robinson out of Baylor. I'll tell you this much. A guy who's making some, getting on radars and making some headway is Jaden Maivia from USC right now. Yeah, the junior. I don't know if he'll declare this year, but he's having a really good season. And I know Neal lives in the Penn State house, and I know
Alar.
Dante Moore is going to show y'all what time it is.
It's a
this
big
weekend.
game Saturday night. But I'll say this about Mendoza because it's funny because I have Mendoza as my QB3. Yeah. But I have him as my QB2 for Miami. I like Lenoris the best for Miami. But I think if you threw Jared Goff and Carson Palmer in a blender, that's what you get with Mendoza, the Cuban Missile, I guess he's dubbed as, born in Miami, Florida, 6'5". He's probably got my favorite arm in the draft. The thing that I do get worried about is he's a 4'7", 4'8", 40
Yeah, he's a pocket guy.
So he's a total pocket guy. Now, look, if we have a new coach and we're not running McDaniel's offense, let's go. But I'm a big believer that this go-round, we need a quarterback that can make plays with his legs. And that's what I like about Sellers. But I'll say this, man. I think there's a chance that
Aller and Moore are two guys that aren't going to – they're not going to create a ton out of structure either, right?
Alar could run. He's a 4.55 guy. I think he can run. Like here, the one thing I give Alar, like I give anybody who plays offense at Penn State, one kind of grain of salt thing, which is James Franklin sucks, and I think everybody knows that. But dude, that game on Saturday night, that's as big as a college football game from a quarterback standpoint, because I think Dante Moore was a guy that probably wasn't really looking to come out, but with the underwhelming quarterback play, I think he'd be naive not to at least explore it, depending on what the class looks like. But the people who say there's not a lot of good options, I disagree. I just think we need to see what happens, and we also got to remember, these guys aren't getting drafted all the time because they threw 300 yards against Ohio State. A lot of times it is traits, right? It is traits. What can I develop them in? I think the problem right now, though, man, if you're being honest, is one of the reasons that it might make sense to wait a year on the quarterback. I don't think the GM that is going to be our GM next year is sitting in our office right now, right? Is our scouting department
could be Brandon Shore? I don't know about that.
I hope not. But and not to say that if we hired someone from somewhere else that they haven't done their own scouting of the positions and stuff like that. But I don't know, man, you might want a year to get everyone settled before you go pull the trigger on a quarterback. Because I do think, to many people's chagrin here, I don't think keeping Tua for a year is necessarily the worst thing because of the cap ramifications.
Just so you know, Aller's on record. He ran a 4.86 this past spring.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
I think it was Zane Durant, the defensive lineman, said they clocked him at a 4.55. But if that's the case, when I watch Alar against,
but when he arrived, he was running a 5.1. Now he's got up to he's 6'4", 235 pounds, and they clocked him at 4.86. So he shaved almost 0.3 seconds off.
Do you buy into the rumors that the Browns were going to take him number 2 overall if he came out?
No. See, here's my issue with Aller. If you aren't a fan of Tua in big moments, why would you be a fan of Aller? He's not a big moment quarterback. He's not a big moment quarterback. You know what I mean? This is why I like John Mateer. John Mateer got that swag. I tell you this all the time. Reminds me of Baker, man. That swag he has, that confidence. Mendoza, look at what he just did to number 9 Illinois. He freaking shredded them apart. And I think Dante Moore is
beautiful.
And Dante Moore this weekend is going to show you what time it is. I'm telling you, this kid's for real. But he's another guy who runs in the 4.7, 4.8. He's nothing. He's not going to kill it out of structure for you.
Right. And Sellers is an amazing runner, right? Like he's amazing on the move. That's where it's like that's why.
But look look at Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza as passers compared to Sellers. Sellers ain't even in the same stratosphere as either one of those guys as passers right now, right?
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Mendoza's the best passer in the draft. I think that.
Yeah, he is. And I think if you're looking for that athleticism and passing ability, I think the best blend right now is John Mateer.
Yeah. No, because
I think Taylon Green
I think
Taylon Green has some of the issues that hold Sellers back. You know what I mean? So I think if you're going that way, I think right now Mateer is, if you want both of worlds. Now, I don't buy into, I don't know if you've seen this, but some scouts are saying they don't think, well, I don't want to say scouts, but evaluators are saying they don't think Mateer's game is going to translate, and I think that's BS. He's a winner, bro, and he's got that winning swag to him too. But if you haven't checked him out, another kid to check out the senior Sawyer Robinson.
Oh, for Baylor, yeah, for sure. And a lot of guys now are getting on the guy from TCU, Josh Hoover's hype.
Josh Hoover, yeah, because he's in the Heisman. Because he's in the Heisman rankings. That's why, right?
And I think Taylon Green's a guy that has a lot of traits that like wow you. But I think the meat and potatoes is where he needs more development, like just the basics. But there's times where he makes throws and you're like, holy shit, did a human being just throw that? But there's and that's where like this Oregon Penn State game coming up on Saturday, this is when you look at quarterbacks, like this is a marquee matchup. Yeah, this is a big matchup. This is where, we talk quarterbacks and there's mock drafts and stuff out there. There's always that two names that come out of nowhere, right? Yeah. And like Dante Moore could be this year's guy. Like if he goes out there and thrashes a very good Penn State defense with, AJ.
Have you watched him yet this year at all? Because he's been phenomenal.
Oh yeah. I didn't do like tape breakdowns, but dude,
he's been phenomenal.
I watch more college football right now than I do pro. But he's got a good test with Zakee Wheatley. He's going to be a pro safety at Penn State. AJ Harris and Elliott Washington. They got Amari Campbell and what's his name, Tony Rojas at linebackers. Good front, Danny Dennis Sutton, Zane Durant. Like he's going against a really good Penn State defense. What's Penn State? It's 3 versus 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is. I mean, dude,
another sleeper who could rise. I remember watching him along the offseason. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch Aiden Childs out of Michigan State.
Oh yeah, but I love Aiden.
He's another one that could probably rise by the end of the year.
I've heard he's likely to stay though.
He could offer you both, but I mean,
well, then the name is
I'd be staying if I got eligibility and I'm watching what Arch Manning looks like right now. Oh, you know what I mean? That number 1 spot is open.
Well, you know this too. A guy that a lot of people are falling back in love in, the ranked number 2 in the country, is Carson Beck. And it's funny, man, because you remember a couple years ago when every mock draft in the world had him at number 1 overall. I got to see it in a big game. Beating Florida is not a big game for me.
Yeah, and even then he struggled at some points in that game. He wasn't like lights out. You know what I mean?
Right, I agree. He's probably not a guy for me, but we'll see. But no, there's good talent there, man. And these conversations are good. A lot of people give DJ Lagway a lot of shit because he's throwing the ball over. Like, I still think he's got a lot of talent.
Yeah, he's just super young, right?
Arch Manning wouldn't be in my top 10 quarterback prospects for this year, though. I just think Arch is totally overrated.
Yeah, he is. He's not good. He took the guy, then he plays Sam Houston, and he's standing over players when he scores a touchdown, playing like a basically a glorified JV team. Unbelievable.
Julian Sayin from Ohio State.
Next year, bro. Yeah, dude. Julian Sayin's a beast, bro. That kid's good.
I like him. He's gutsy, man.
He is. I like him a lot, too. And I'm a Dragon Ball fan, as you can see. So anyone with the last name Saiyan, you got me hooked. Because we could draft him, and I can call him our Super Saiyan. Listen, the Jets, fancy new rivalry uniforms. How do you see this game going? Because, listen, I'm going to tell you this, bro. I'm going to tell you if we get the Jets team that showed up in week 1 against Pittsburgh, we could be in trouble. They're playing for Aaron Glenn right now. They put up 32 points against the Steelers. Now, they did get blown out against the Bills, but they lost a close one to the Bucs, and the Bucs right now are a much better team than the Dolphins. They put up 27 and lost 29-27. They've been competitive in 2 of their 3 losses. Now, Justin Fields, he's still in concussion protocol.
They cleared
there's
him.
plenty. They did. They cleared him today.
Yeah,
Okay.
he started. Yep.
So Justin Fields is starting. We know Justin Fields a couple years ago when he, as a rookie with the Bears, didn't he have like a rookie rushing record against us or something like that?
Yep.
We always have historically had troubles with quick and fleet-footed quarterbacks. How do you see this one going on Monday night?
I think the Dolphins stink. I think they're going to win 5 games, but I think they're going to handle the Jets. And the reason why I think that, the Jets defense have given up over 30 points in all 3 games that they've played. We all know the name Sauce Gardner. I don't think he's the player he was 2 years ago. And outside of him, their secondary is as bad as ours. Tony Adams at safety, Andre Sisco, they've been disasters. Brandon Stevens is probably the worst starting corner in football. We know him well because when Tua threw for 469 and 6 touchdowns against the Ravens, we were torching him all day long. Him against Waddle is a matchup in favor. But, Jermaine Johnson's going to be out, so they're going to be starting Mike Clemens at the edge. Getting outside and containing isn't really his strong suit. And they're going to be down Quincy Williams, who is their linebacker. Yeah, he plays with their hair on fire, and they're replacing him with Malagoi's brother. So he's going to be starting it for the Jets linebacker. Quincy, with Devon Achane's ability to get outside, I think those are 2 big losses for the Jets. I don't think this team's quit on Mike McDaniel. I think they're going to play hard, and Tua is undefeated against this Jets team. And how do you beat the Dolphins? You attack their secondary. The quarterback that I'm confident cannot do that is Justin Fields. So I think the Dolphins' defensive strategy should be sell out to stop the run and bracket Garrett Wilson. I mean, outside of him, they have Arian Smith, Jeremy Ruckert. Like, they don't have a lot of weapons there. I think this is a game where the Dolphins win something like 23-16, and they're pretty much in control the whole game. I think they come out hot, get the ball, score quick and early. But I think, it's maybe Tua doesn't have staggering stats, but I think he's going to probably play his most efficient football game. I just think the Jets are a disaster. And Aaron Glenn, he's it's too early to see what he is there, but I know this. Whenever I'm watching the Jets, they get 15-yard penalties like it's going out of style, man. They are not a disciplined football team. Like, as bad as the Dolphins are, in my opinion, the Jets, the only team worse than the Jets in football, in my opinion, are the Saints. I think the Jets are a bad team. I think week 1 against Pittsburgh, they played against Aaron Rodgers. That was a home opener. That was their Super Bowl. We saw the best version of them. What I saw from Justin Fields against Buffalo was the worst quarterback game I've ever seen in my entire life. And I think he's closer to that player than we saw week 1. So I'm predicting the Dolphins win. Outside of the Saints game in a few weeks, that might be the only time you hear that from me for this year. So,
well, you know what's crazy? I was more worried about Tyrod playing.
150%.
I know we beat him the last few times. But he's historically kind of had our number. You know what I mean?
Like, he's a Dolphin killer. Tyrod Taylor's except the last start we played him in. When was he? Houston, was it? Or Giants? Wherever we played him last.
Yeah, it was the Giants, I think.
He was on a bad football team, but in the past when he was he had our number, no doubt about it.
And when he's with the Bills, right?
Yeah, I think Justin Fields playing is actually a good thing for Miami. He'll make some plays with his legs. I just don't think the Jets had the firepower to keep with the Dolphins' offense. Like, they played a good Buffalo defense on the road. They lost, but I do think we're starting to see that there's still an explosive element of this Dolphins offense. And, maybe the quarterback's not playing good in clutch moments, but if you're in control and leading a game, maybe you don't have that many clutch moments. You know what I mean? So I think they win. Yeah.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have got to get out of here. Here's the deal. Tomorrow, I'll be dropping the episode of the starting lineup. It'll be me, Dougley, and a few Jets content creators, so be on the lookout for that. On Saturday, I'll be going live in the day, and we'll do our game preview on Saturday. And then we'll be back on Monday to live react to the game that night. Always a pleasure, Neal. I mean, let's hope that the Miami Dolphins can get it done on Monday. They got to keep feeding Ollie Gordon, and I agree with you. You got to keep making Achane a focal point of this offense, because when Achane goes, this team goes. So, and hey, the offensive line, here we go. Daniel Brunskill, he's got to be a lot better. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, I'll be back tomorrow for all you guys. Until then, you already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day. We'll catch y'all on the next one. Until then, appreciate each and every one of you. Shout out to the sponsor, Sleeper, and we'll see y'all on the next one. Fins up, everyone.